So I remember watching movie trailers, and they would always say something like Siskel and Ebert gave it two thumbs
Two
up.
thumbs up, way
Yeah.
up.
So that went through the 90s, and they
Yep.
would always put it on the box sets, and like Siskel and Ebert said this was great and all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
So they at some point Siskel and Ebert actually did wield quite a bit of power.
Yeah.
Gene. Hello and welcome to the Brothers Random Show. My name is Travis,
I'm Michael.
and we are two ordinary brothers discussing extraordinary ideas and some random shit. Michael, why are we here?
Today we are talking about some controversy around the cancellation of the Acolyte and critics.
An alarming number of users are exploiting their platforms to spread hate.
Bitter Star Wars fans coordinated attack. Some of our friends on social media, Geeks and Gamers, Gary from Nerdrotic, Ryan Kinnell, are the targets of an attack by a bunch of other YouTubers that don't like things they say.
If you are unaware, online, the cancellation of the Acolyte was blamed on a certain number of critiques that were made through YouTube, specifically Nerdrotic, Critical Drinker, Hill versus Babyface. These are all YouTube channels that essentially were blamed for the cancellation of the Acolyte. Now, these are old-time Star Wars fans who were willing to go along for the ride, and somewhere along the ride, Star Wars went from being a boys brand to being a girls brand. And these guys lamented that, talked about it, and basically gave their honest reviews about what was good about these things and what was bad about these things. And most of it was bad. And that's why that according to certain companies, certain places, they were the reason for the cancellation of the Acolyte. Now, that's not very good reason. The reason is that they probably weren't getting the numbers they needed to justify $180 million for a 8-episode show. Disney Plus it was probably all about dollars and not about people talking shit about the show. So
when push comes to shove, you got to make money off of it.
Yeah, you got to make
basically
make
it just is what it is. You can tote the message, you can tote the ideology all you want, but eventually at the end of the day you've got to make money. And I think that's what they're just starting to catch on to, is if these shows don't make money, they just get canceled or don't do as well. And then they need to change it up so that they do make money.
Well, and I think what's happening is there's a lot of realization going on. Willow was an attempt at a franchise that it was a property that Lucasfilm owned, and they wanted to make a series after it, and it did so poorly ratings wise, they took it off of the platform, the Disney Plus platform. It did, which
says a lot.
Which says a lot, because it doesn't really require too much energy to keep the things up on their platforms. I think it was an embarrassment. Right? I think it actually was an embarrassment because they thought they were going to do well with it, and it didn't do well.
Yeah,
there has been an attack on the previously mentioned YouTube channels from what is called an organization called Rewriting Ripley. And they basically, what they did is they went to YouTube and said, YouTube has these Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker. They've violated the YouTube terms, and you guys need to throw them off the platform. And this is a big controversy, mostly just in this sphere, in YouTube land, and critic land, basically. And it blew up in their face because YouTube took a look at it and was like, well, they're not violating any of our any of our policies. But they're getting a lot of pressure to shut these YouTubers down. YouTubers that, by the way, we both frequent. We both watch some of their content.
Yeah.
And so we're well aware of what's going on with all of this. And we're here to just talk a little bit about criticism in general. So the old adage was back in the day, if you're a critic, critics are the people that actually can't do anything. So a food critic would be somebody who couldn't cook. A movie critic would be somebody who couldn't make a movie, and so on and so forth. Which there's probably a little bit of truth to that, but also at the same time, critics are, I wouldn't say probably necessary, but they do get the dialogue going about movies. And so you and I get on here a lot and we talk about movies because we really like movies. And we're free to do that. This is a free country. So back in the day, there used to be Siskel and Ebert. They popularized critics.
And joining me in the balcony is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And across the aisle from me, Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
My best recommendation for this film is that it immediately be cut up and made into ukulele picks. The name of the
and it used to be just a bunch of people would open up the paper and read their columns about what was good to see, right? They had a refined taste about what was good and what was terrible. And these are all opinions. So it's all opinion stuff. Nothing to get too worked up about. Then there was a show, the Siskel and Ebert show. It was a 30-minute show. It was them sitting in an empty theater, and they would talk about the movies of the week. As time went by, there was also G4 had a Chris Gore. He was a movie critic for G4. So this has been going on for a long time. And after the advent of the internet, this went on the internet, and that's where everybody now critiques movies.
It's a weird place where back in the 90s, the critics, they were kind of heard, but not a lot of people gave them credit. At least that's just kind of my memory of it, is like, but it just seems like now critics, the internet has made critics' voices so much greater that they have a bigger audience.
It's amplified their voices
more. Yeah. They really have kind of gotten more power than they probably did back then. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I remember watching movie trailers, and they would always say something like Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up. Way up.
So that went through the 90s. Yeah. And they would always put it on the box sets, and like Siskel and Ebert said this was great and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So they, at some point, Siskel and Ebert actually did wield quite a bit of power. Gene Siskel died, and I think Ebert tried to keep it going. He had like different other guys come in and like Richard Roper and people like that. So movie critiquing has been a thing for decades. I mean, they did it in the 1920s when the movies came out. They had critics back then. But the thing that the internet has done is it's basically taken regular people and helped them project a voice out. So you don't have to have studied film. You just have to have seen and gone through good movies. And I mean, we just
made an audience.
And made an audience.
Built an audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be. So what's so interesting about this whole thing is that it's not about the critiques that these people are attacking them. It's about them being racist and bigoted. And it's a disingenuous reason. That's not what they're doing. They are literally talking about story structure, acting, visual effects. These are all things that make a show or a movie a thing. And they also do it for gaming, for so this isn't, they can do this. They should be allowed to do this. We shouldn't be silencing voices that are saying, hey, look at this thing that's popularized, that's been popular, this is legitimately terrible, and here are the reasons why. So that's what criticism is. And we've become a generation of people who don't like criticism at all.
Well, in true millennial fashion,
Yeah.
they've changed it from uh ownership of something that they've done wrong and pushed it onto, well, this didn't do well because of these people that are horrible racist bigots. So they're pushing off the responsibility. And
yes, the responsibility of, oh, we made this turd and
yeah,
we deserve to have all the criticism that can come our way. It's not that. It's, no, you guys don't like us because of our race, sexuality, take your pick, whatever. It's like, when did this become so? Nobody in the 90s and 80s, nobody was going to Siskel and Ebert and going, you just don't like me because I have a certain belief about religion or gender or whatever. It's not, it's never personal. It's always like they're looking at it from the objective eye. This is either good or this is bad. We don't particularly like this, or we do particularly like this. That's what criticism is. And it's weird that it's become this thing where if you critique me, you don't like this about me. You don't like this, like, even though that's not even mentioned. They didn't mention most of what they're critiquing is the story. Why are they?
Story, filmmaking,
Yeah.
all those things. Yeah.
So it's flipped. It's weird because when the Transformers movies were coming out in the early 2000s, I remember a lot of critics, like legitimate critics that for like the Washington Post and LA Times and all that kind of stuff, the New York Times, they would always shit over these movies because to be honest, like, they're just a lot of visual flair. I liked the first one. There's been a couple of them that I've liked, but for the most part, these are actually terrible movies because they don't have complex characters. Their characters don't have story arcs. They don't, so it's just a bunch of action and explosions and stuff like that, and it can be entertaining or you can fall asleep in the theater. Either way, what it is it's not that great of entertainment, but they would shit over them and they would get a lot of shit for shitting over them because because the fans liked these movies, right? The first three or whatever, there's like 5 of them now or 6 of them. But the point is that they were allowed to have these critiques, and they were never like, people disagreed with the critique, but it wasn't like, well, Siskel and Ebert or I think by the time those movies came out, I think Gene Siskel had already been dead.
They weren't attacking
they weren't attacking their character, or their sexuality or their religious beliefs. They weren't attacking those things because it was like, really, like, and now it's flipped. It's like you have shit over my show or my movie, and now it's all a personal attack. And I don't know when people became so fragile. It's weird. Back in those days, the audience score was always high for a Transformers movie because they were always like, oh, this is so great, this is, it's eye candy and all this kind of stuff. And the critics scores, which is on Rotten Tomatoes, so they do audience and critics, and the legitimate critics scores were always really low because the critics hated them. It's inverted.
Now it's flipped. Yeah.
It's flipped because now the audience can see that these are bad, and the critics are all bought and paid for from these corporations, and like the legitimate critics. And so these legitimate critics attack the regular people on YouTube, which aren't known as legitimate critics. They're just known as people who started a channel and started talking about things that they love, and they would say, oh, here's this shit and here's this shit and this is terrible or this is good, and people follow that. And this, and it's weird that that's flipped. It's weird that that's flipped, because now a critic, like a legitimate critic, is going to praise something based on an ideology and not based on whether the story was good.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where we're at.
Because they're bought and paid for by the system. I don't know. For whatever reason, they
want
yeah,
access.
You're right. It's
they
flipped.
want
It's flipped.
Well, see, so Disney's a huge corporation. So what would happen if these people were honest and they said, okay, the Acolyte is terrible and we're gonna crap all over it? Then Disney can go, well, we're not bringing you in to interview stars anymore, or we're not bringing you in to interview. So they'll like blackball them.
Yeah, they'll lose their access.
They'll lose their access, and that out of everything seems what's really bad about all this, because then it no longer is an honest reading of this material, right? It's no longer honest. It's like, I need to get access from these corporations, so I need to keep my mouth shut about what I really believe.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we get like the Rotten Tomatoes score for the Acolyte, which is like the audience score is like 18% and the critic score is like 78%. It's like something's wrong here.
Yeah.
Did you guys
Something's
like
off.
what is crazy is like they forgot what is good storytelling. They're not after what's good storytelling. Complex characters, interesting stories, lines. You know, you can do that.
Well, when Cult of Woke takes over everything else, it's when that takes precedence, then everything else is secondary.
Yeah. It deteriorates, it morphs, it changes people's opinions, people's beliefs, and then you're left with this attack on all these different YouTubers. And you know what, the thing about it is that I mean all these YouTubers have a millions of subscribers. Like, just
Yeah.
Nerdrotic has over 1 million. I know Critical Drinkers got, I think, upwards of more than 2 million.
Yeah.
I think Star Wars Theory's got like 3 million subscribers. So it's like, these are the kind of numbers that the Acolyte wanted. So there's a little bit of what do you call it? I guess jealousy in all this.
There could be a little bit of jealousy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like so it's a Disney backed show. And with a Disney backed show, you've got money. And so they're seeing, oh, all these YouTubers hate this show. We need to find other YouTubers with a lot of influence to like it in order to balance this out.
Get them paid off.
And that's what Rewriting Ripley feels like it has done. The accusations are false. They're false flags. They're just reasons for them to go, hey, you guys, you guys need to get rid of these YouTubers because these YouTubers don't respect what gender and race.
Well, they threw out that they associated these guys with Milo Yiannopoulos,
yeah,
which hasn't been in the limelight for a while.
I don't think he's been around for I haven't heard anything new from that guy for 6 years. And he probably is a bigoted person for sure.
Yeah.
But they're associating these YouTubers.
He hasn't been a film critic. Like, that's not what he does.
He was a political
pundit. Yeah, but they're saying anyway. What a weird
what a weird association with these guys.
All these guys, same bucket, throw them in.
Yeah.
And let's get our audience to believe that these guys are just like Milo. Really,
these guys aren't like.
Wow,
you're not even in this team.
Dig that up from left field for reals.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird. It's a way to silence people And I think the popular voices, the more original voices, those need to be the ones that kind of rise above. So if you're silencing people, that's not playing fair. Let's just say that you are not playing on the level that they're playing. If you need to go to YouTube and tell them to silence them,
I think they're going to go through the big studios are going to go through some real hard growing pains with these critics. I guess you call them critics, but with these critics having so much power, we're seeing this with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Rachel Zegler getting on and saying, "Oh, it's not about love; it's about her finding her leadership and
skills."
And people are like, "All right, well, I'm checking out then." And now she's talking a different tune. See, this was a year ago.
A year ago. Yeah.
Now you get her on an interview and she's like, "Oh, it's such a beloved story," and it's like, all right, well, people are realizing some of these studios are realizing that these things,
the YouTubers
cost them money. Yeah. YouTubers, like these critics, and if they've got a point, they've got a point, right? And that I think that they are learning that hard and fast. Now they have a couple options, right? Silence them,
which is what they're trying to do.
That's what they're trying to do. Yeah.
Or they could
make
just
better
listen.
shit.
Yeah, they could just listen to them. I mean, I bet you that would cost less. I bet you if they listened to the critics and they were like, okay, this is a terrible idea. We need to go back to the drawing board. We need to figure this shit out, because they'll praise what's good. Inside Out 2 that came out this last summer.
Yeah.
That got really good reviews from across the board. Everybody said this was good. Now there was problems with it, little nitpicks, because at that point you're just making little nitpicks, right? And you and I reviewed it, and I found nothing in it that was inappropriate for our kids. I highly enjoyed this one, and it became the success of the summer. So it's possible. Okay, so we people like you and me, and people like Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker, they're going to praise the good stuff. They're going to look at it objectively, not because this was made by a corporation, because they want to take down a corporation. No, they want something to be good. We all want it to be good. We're all going to the movie theater or turning on our television in order to look at something and objectively go, that was good. That was a great story. It was told well, and we love it. That's what we want.
Yeah.
So give us what we want, and let's get rid of the message.
Yeah. We just want to be entertained.
Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Check us out on social media, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just look for The Sword in the Skull. If you are listening to this and not watching it, please go to YouTube and like, share, and subscribe. In the meantime, keep reading, keep listening, keep watching, learn more. We'll see you, brother.
See ya.